Hello friends, and welcome back to this week's vlog. Well, today is Saturday and it's been such a busy week for me that I've only just now had the opportunity to grab my camera and speak with you this week. It was also a very dreary and rainy week. We had a beautiful Monday, but the sun hasn't really started to come back out until late yesterday afternoon, and it's partly cloudy today. This was good because I really needed to buckle down and get some work done because ever so gratefully, we procured and booked 4 new wedding clients last week. And I don't think in my 23 years of business that I booked 4 clients, and it was in 2 days, that succinctly and that swiftly, but they're all such a great fit and we are so looking forward to it. It was also at a time where both Tracy and Jessica were out of town, so I was trying to onboard everything on my own and get everything up and running. Had really great first meetings with them, and so we are all systems a go. What's also happening around here in these parts is we are getting ready to move here in Michigan in just a little over a week, say 9 or 10 days. I'm not quite getting the feeling that it's daunting just yet, but just like when we moved from our Winter Park home to our Orlando home about 7 or 8 months ago, we're in that week stretch where I am officially getting restless, and I told my husband as much this morning. So we're trying to bring things over slowly, but even that we can't quite do because we have a lovely woman that's coming in middle of next week to do a move-in clean. And don't forget, I mean, if you've seen the house tour, and if you haven't, go ahead and look at my video, probably 2 videos ago, where I did an empty house tour of the new old home here in Upper Michigan in Traverse City. And so it is a 130-year-old home, plus, you know, someone else lived in there before who was a single gentleman, as I understand. So it needs a little TLC in the cleaning department, if you get my drift. So we can't really, and we don't really want to move things in there until it's nice and clean for us. Like, she's getting in the cupboards, she's getting in the vents, like she's getting in there. So even the things we want to slowly move over, it would be a bit premature because we need it to be spit spot before we get in there. So I've been keeping myself busy, of course, with wedding clients. I did see Toy Story 5 a couple of days ago, and it was perfect. It was perfect. So I don't know if any of you have seen it out there, but I was crossing my fingers and toes for this one because I so dearly love this franchise. I love Pixar. I love everything Disney. But even after 4, I was like, okay, like maybe it's time to say goodbye to this franchise. And I thought Toy Story 4 was the end. So when they announced Toy Story 5, I was a little hesitant and concerned. And then of course, Taylor did the end credits song, so I had to go see it. It was so nostalgic, but so relevant. It was just simply perfect. So that was a nice little outing I had for myself the other evening. So I am just puttering about here this weekend, trying to get things ready and organized for this big move. And yeah, I'll take you along for some of the fun stuff along the way. Well, I just had to pull myself outside and collect myself because I think I started the Calamity Club, that book that I mentioned to you previously, 2 weeks ago. Literally 2 weeks ago, it was when I started to go to Grand Rapids that weekend that Mr. Lyons had some golf friends staying at the house, and I did my flea to a hotel in Grand Rapids, and I just finished it moments ago, and it was just genuinely so good. I feel like I definitely took chunks out of that book every single day. And I looked at Mr. Lyons this morning and I said, I'm finishing this book today. Don't you love when a book has you just sort of collecting your thoughts and reminiscing about different stages in the books and how the storyline evolved and the characters evolved and all of that? And I may have mentioned it before, but the author is the same author of The Help, which turned into a really genuinely funny, beautiful, witty movie. And I'm confident the same is going to happen with this book. So I look forward to inevitably whenever that happens. Now that I'm sitting here in this backyard, it just makes me realize so much how I really truly will miss this backyard. It's been such a beautiful solace. We love the back here and the woods. This backyard is definitely bigger than the one that we will be getting at the new old house, and Freddie in particular loved this backyard. But you know, once we get everything ship shape, he will love the new house house. They all will, just as much. So I've been reading a lot this summer, and so I'm going to continue. Now I'm switching over to Kindle because I think it's important for me to like vacillate back and forth for whatever reason. It makes sense in my own brain. But I'm going to read that book by Isabel Klee that I showed you that was on my Kindle. So that's next, and I'm very excited to do that as well. So today on deck, because it is a beautiful day, I am going to the nursery here. The nurseries here in Traverse City and just in general in sort of this Grand Traverse County area are just so next level. They're so beautiful. I just want to reacquaint myself. I told you I think I have an idea of what I want ultimately planted at the house. Peonies, some roses, lilacs, Annabelle hydrangeas, all those beautiful things. Just want to see if maybe there's something I'm overlooking. I always draw so much inspiration when I'm in those places, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm also going to head to the library. I did go ahead and get my library card last week, but now I'm going to go in there and do the research I mentioned that I was going to do last week, and that is I want to see if I can find out any history about the house that we've just purchased. Since it is a historic home, I would like to pay homage to the home or previous owners and just dig and see how far I can get. So I want to do that. Maybe take the Kindle and sit by the water for a little bit. That seems to be like my new favorite thing to do, is just take my beach chair. Again, I can walk to the beach from the house, and we've kept the beach chairs at the new house, and then just maybe spend an hour or so reading out there, because it's just so incredibly relaxing and grounding for me. And then we have dinner plans, so I get to dress up tonight, and I am very much looking forward to that. Like I said, also, Traverse City is a very sort of casual place, so I've been very comfortable in my casual clothes, but it'll be really nice to put on a dress and head to dinner. We have some business friends of my husband's coming in, and so we're going to a beautiful, really great restaurant. We've been there before, called the Boathouse, and so I am looking forward to that. But time is wasting. I've also been doing stretch and folds for the sourdough that's in there. Look forward to having some fresh bread, likely by tomorrow. So I need to go do another stretch and fold. Actually, I've done two, so I'm going to do coil pulls. Yeah, and get going because I need to seize this beautiful day. It's just so beautiful. I also mentioned previously it's been very sort of chilly, but today right now it's 72 degrees. It's going to be a high of 73. It's absolutely perfect. So I'm so excited. Hello again, friends. Well, it's been a few hours since we last spoke, and I feel like so much and so little has happened in that time that I can't wait to catch you up on all of that. So did my last bit of stretch and folds and coil pulls on the sourdough, so that is proofing very lovely on the kitchen counter. So I expect that by the time we get back from dinner this evening, it will be ready for me to shape into a nice ball there and then have it proof further in the fridge overnight. Then I can bake it tomorrow. Immediately after I finished that, I did go by the water and I started to read my book on my Kindle. So I was there for about an hour and it was so nice. It's so funny because though it is a lovely day, it's 72 degrees, at least it was when I left. As soon as you get to the water, and I'm so glad that I have my little J. Crew knit sweater here. It's lightweight enough, but it covers you, because the moment I get by the water, I swear, it feels like it's 5 to 10 degrees chillier plus the breeze. So I felt comfortable because I had this on, but it was just so nice. And I was not in a very busy part of the beach, although I marvel at the amount of people even in this weather. And I know I'm a Florida girl at this point, but the number of people that were in the water baffles me. But I'm glad that they were enjoying themselves. But that, coupled by the trees rustling and seagulls in the air and a book, I felt like just the day could not get any better. But then I went to I'm going to say it's my favorite nursery so far, and I have visited visited several nurseries here in Traverse City and beyond, and this one is my favorite, and it just so happens to be very close to my house. So you will have seen the beautiful plants and bushes they have for sale, but what I really marvel at are, and it's a thing here, it's not just a thing here in Traverse City, because I used to spend many years ago, 20 plus years ago, time in the summer. My ex-husband is from Michigan, so the middle of the state. So we would take our children every summer to spend time with their grandparents, and we absolutely loved it. I think that's when I fell in love with Michigan, to be honest. And I noticed even there, the town, that city was called Midland, and Saginaw, and the streets, even the city streets, were lined with these beautiful hanging baskets with pansies. And I mean, they were so full and overflowing, and I just always admired them so much, never thinking, and it's so funny how now it's a part of my reality. So we have 4 beautiful hanging sort of pansy plants on our little balcony here, and it's so nice. But they have so many beautiful variations at this particular garden, and I just love it. And they just started to, in the main area where you, and it's a large space, but in the main area where you check out, they have some produce from the Amish farmers here, and I just love looking at produce. So that was so good. And then I went on my quest to the library, and folks, this is where it gets good. When I tell you, well, first, let me first show you that this is a receipt from my very first checkout of the library. And you know, this is just a big lesson to me, and hopefully to you. If you're not tapping into your local library, I would encourage you to do so. Shamefully, I cannot tell you the last time I stepped foot in a library. And when we lived in Winter Park, the most beautiful library was just built a few years ago. And it's even won architectural awards. It was featured in Architectural Digest and all of the rest, and it's quite something. I've actually done weddings at the event center next to it, but I've never, sadly, been inside of that library, and it was a mere 1.5 miles from the home that we lived in. So the good news is now it's only about 3.5 miles from the house we live in Orlando, and I will be sure to be visiting there. Before I get to the really good stuff, I checked out my first books. And the first one, you guess, they're both about gardening, but the first one is here, and there might be a glare, I don't know if you can see it, but it's the new perennial garden, and I'm just so intrigued by perennials. I'll admit to you, I wasn't all that familiar with it. I just think that with maybe the people that I've been following and the content that I follow, they mention perennials a lot. But this is something I really want to learn more about, because when I do create our backyard oasis here, I want to make sure, because it's just so different here, right, than Orlando. I marvel at how plants can come back after a brutal winter, after any kind of winter. So that's exactly what this is. Perennials, they just come back year after year. And then, because I'm fascinated with all things roses and all things UK and England, and just in my experience with weddings and everything, the most beautiful roses that I ever see that come in are David Austin roses. And so when I saw this book, I immediately grabbed it off the shelf. And so this here is David Austin English Roses, and I just want to see how, I think it says Glorious New Roses for American Gardens. So I think that's where the intrigue was for me. I thought maybe they were limited to the UK, but gladly I see that it's not. I took a picture when we were at the nursery again, because I brought Mr. Lyons yesterday, and I saw a climbing one. Now I have climbing roses in Orlando, but they're tiny, and we do what we can in Orlando with obviously what will be viable there. These were big ones. They weren't David Austin. I'll try to find out the name of those for you, but whether they're David Austin or not, something that mimics that to me would be a dream to climb over an arbor, a trellis, pergola, you name it. The most wondrous thing, I was nearly rendered speechless. The most beautiful thing that happened today was in the library. And after I had found those books, I ventured upstairs, which was more reference and history. That's actually where I found the books on gardening. I asked for help, and there was a lovely gentleman there by the name of Mike. And Mike, I hope you watch this, because I know now we are going to be in touch. And I told him that we had just purchased a home in downtown Traverse City, a historic home. Told him where it was. He said, I know it very well. Yes, a lot of historic homes there. I did tell him that we are undergoing a renovation, but it was my intent or my hope to do some research to find a little bit more about this home, perhaps the people that lived in it, because in some small way or in many little ways, I'd like to pay homage to them and to that and to preserve its legacy in some way. His eyes and the gentleman next to his lit up and they said, that is such a nice thing to do. And I thought so too, but mainly for me, selfishly for me, it makes me feel good. Well, he's like, oh, okay, interesting. And he's like, where downtown? I tell him, it's this banter back and forth. We're going back and forth. It's almost a little bit like every time I answered a question, I was like hanging on by a thread for his answer. So he said, interesting. Oh, such and so street? And I said, yeah. What's the number? I tell him, he's like, let me text my mom. By the way, that's Michigan. He was born and raised here, whatever. So he texts his mom and he goes, I had family that lived on that street and I'm just gonna call it. I know it was my great-great-grandfather. I'm like, okay. So as we wait for mom to text him back, and of course his phone is on silent. I mean, we're in the library. He takes me along to these reference areas. And maybe your library has this too. I don't know. I would so encourage you to go to your library to check this out. But they had white pages for the city of Traverse City that as far back as we could go was 1940. And so we looked, well, we didn't know that his mother had texted him back while we were doing all of this research, and we're looking and we're looking and we're looking. And I'm so grateful to you, Mike, if you're watching, because I don't know, it was serendipity, but it would have been a laborious and tedious task for me to get as far as we did in 15 minutes. And so he's like, well, let me just look under my grandfather's last name and we'll just see. In 1940, he surely would have been on this street. So we look down, and he puts his finger to where his great-great-grandfather's name is. And he just looked up at me and he said, that's your house. And I mean, as I tell you this, I don't know if you can see it, as I tell you this, I got the most intense goosebumps. I immediately had tears in my eyes. I'm about to get tears in my eyes telling you this story. And I just looked at him and I said, are you serious? And he said, and he was a great man. You know, he never met him, but by the stories and everything. So we just sat down and chatted about his grandfather, and he was the assistant postmaster to the city of Traverse City. Even though the white pages brought us back to 1940, we know that as early as 1930 he was in this home. And this home was built in 1896. I was gobsmacked. Well, safe to say, I mean, Mike and I are going to be in touch. I'm going to visit him in the library. And so at the very least, he said he's going to, he said he is the custodian of all of the old family photos and he's going to go through. I said, I would love a photo to reproduce, of course. I don't want to take your originals at all, of perhaps your great-grandfather in his postmaster uniform. It can be at the house. It doesn't have to be at the house. That would be one of the images I would love. And if there's one of him in this home, of course. Now, there may or may not have been another owner prior to this gentleman, but my goodness, I'm just so happy. I'm so happy that we have this. So once I get the photo, and it depends where we land with the whole architectural nature of the house post-renovation, but once we are all set, I fully intend on having that picture right at the entrance, right by the front door, to honor Mike's great-great-grandfather. All of this excitement today has completely distracted me, but I did have to wait for some deliveries here at the house. That's why I'm sitting in our empty family room here. But I did want to tell you also that after a series of interviews with general contractors, some very inspiring, some not so very inspiring, designers, this one, that one, referrals, and all the rest. I mean, we've been busy bees as far as that goes. Thursday, I think, was the day. I think we've met our contractor. And I am so excited. Mr. Lyons is so excited. Equally, we are so inspired. Like, both, I would credit Mr. Lyons truly as being a visionary. That man can truly see the forest through the trees when it comes to things like this. He has really been the captain of the ship with
all of our renovations, and he lets me just sort of sneak in and pull in the finishing touches. And while I have some ideas, I mean, he truly understands like load-bearing walls and studs and just, you know, and I'm about texture, depth of field, dimension, color, and all the rest, but it's a perfect match. Anyway, this gentleman came in and just struck the balance with the both of us, and he presented an idea to us that none of the other contractors had presented. And when he mentioned it, you could have heard a pin drop. And I felt like I was telepathically speaking with my husband and vice versa. I knew at that moment we were like, and you're hired. Well, tell us the numbers later, but right now you're hired. On top of all of that, if that cannot get any better, he can start the project when we leave in the fall. And we may even leave a little bit earlier so that he can get started. With all of the other contractors that we've interviewed and just the buzz around the street, and when we would talk to people who they worked with and everything, we were getting bids and quotes for that would start in late summer 2027 and maybe with a completion of 2028. And we're just thinking like, we kind of want to live here actually. And we know good things come to those who wait, but we have a general sense for what we want. And I even told my husband before we found our guy, I'm like, can we look outside of Traverse City for a contractor just like to get this ball rolling? I feel like things are finally happening, and I feel a lot like my clients when you kind of bust through all of like the things you have to do, you take care of your budget, you do all of these things. I feel like maybe we are embarking on the fun stuff now. It may sound fun to you and it may not, but it's fun to me. But mulch is getting laid down tomorrow and I couldn't be happier. So there is that. I have got to get going because I know I have to shower and get ready for our dinner. But I also wanted to speak to my slow summer series or my slow summer sensibility. So for years now, I want to say 3 to 4 years, I have worn an Oura ring. And an Oura ring, for those of you who may not know, is a fitness tracker, much like a Fitbit, much like an Apple Watch. I've had all three. I had the Apple Watch until my husband gifted me a beautiful watch when we got married. And I remember thinking once I stopped wearing the watch, first of all, when I look at pictures of myself having worn that watch, I can't believe it. I just feel like, wow, I really walked around with a computer on my wrist. I felt like I was getting ghost notifications. I just felt so tethered to this watch. Even when I would silence it or whatever, it was just another thing to check. And I'll tell you what, and this is no dig, I'm sure I'll in some way find a healthy relationship with the Oura ring again, maybe even full time. But for now, I've taken it off. I've had it off now for a week. I found myself getting oddly dependent on it in a way. So like I would check it first thing when I opened my eyes in the morning and immediately to see how I slept. And even if I slept 7 or 8 hours, like, oh my goodness, I only got 1 hour and 15 minutes of REM sleep or 1 hour and 29 minutes of deep sleep. And then I'm like truly splitting hairs with my sleep. If I saw I had 45 minutes of stress on a day that I didn't think I was stressed, and then 2 hours another day, it would make me spiral, which would then, you guessed it, would spike my stress levels for that moment there. So I know myself, this isn't for everybody, but I am just so extremely type A that I check checklists. I love checklists. So I would check my stats on my Oura app and tracker. I'm almost ashamed to tell you how many times a day because I couldn't count. It was regularly, it was a lot. So for now, I know that I'm moving my body. I know that I'm sleeping really, really well. I feel really great. I'm reading, I'm grounding, I'm doing all the things. I'm just gonna let it be. I'm just going to let it be. I've been slowly reading. Now, I've told you about all the fun fiction books I've been reading, but I've been slowly reading the book Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia. And it's a monster of a book. It's a big one, but it's fascinating to me. And in it, and in an interview I saw him, the interviewer, the journalist asked him how he felt about trackers. And he was like, if it serves you, if it becomes where you're dependent on it or you're almost addicted to it, he was like, maybe step back. And that's kind of been ringing in the back of my head. So for now, I'm a little bit off the Oura ring and I feel great. I feel really, really great. Oh, and it's the first day of summer. So happy solstice. And here is, so it should be the longest day of the year. and it doesn't get dark here until about 10:15. So I really, it's a little bit cloudy today, so I hope we can see it. I hope we have a great sunset, because we are going to a location where we will see the sunset in a beautiful fashion. And dinner reservations aren't until 7, so we'll definitely have plenty of daylight. So hopefully we can catch that a little later on.
Well, friends, time is a thief. Mr. Lyons is literally waiting in the driveway for me with 2 gentlemen in the car, and it's time for dinner. But I did want to show you that I did manage to get dressed. I'm so excited for dinner this evening. I'm wearing this beautiful eyelet Ralph Lauren dress, and let me just, one moment please. Joking. And these really sweet, very reasonable Sam Edelman kitten heels, and I look forward to a lovely evening, and thank you so much for spending this weekend with me, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video. Bye-bye.